From children commandeering a train across Japan in search of their friend, to a hardcore gamer crafting his legend in a popular MMO, these new fantasy anime have 0 terrible episodes. Number 12, A Salad Bowl of Entrix. Sosuke Kaburaya is a broke detective working any gig he can find. Then, one day a portal opens up above his head and dumps a princess from another world on top of him. The princess in question is Sarada Odin, who escaped from her home world after soldiers rebelled against the Empire. And side note, she can use magic. Long story short, Sosuke takes Sara under his wings since she has 0 knowledge of this world and might end up going to jail if she uses her powers wrong. Before, Sosuke was barely scraping by. However, now it's Sara acting as the super-powered Watson to his Sherlock Holmes. The duo catches criminals, stalks cheating husbands, and solves all sorts of mysteries to become the ultimate and richest detective agency in town. Number 11, Train to the End of the World. Not so long ago, a disastrous incident altered the course of civilization. Now, humanity is left scattered in isolated settlements, and in one specific town in Japan called Agano, people are transformed into animals when they become 21 years old. It's a very weird reality Shizuru Chikura and her friends have found themselves in, always wondering about what'll happen when they become 21, what the future holds, and whether their friends who disappeared after the incident are still alive. That was the case until one day when Shizuru, Nadeshiko, Reimi, and Akira saw in a newspaper that their friend Yoka was still alive, but she was somewhere in Ikebukuro. Longing to meet their friend but having no way of traveling, the group quickly loses hope, but with a stroke of luck, certain events lead to them operating an abandoned train. That's when they decide to depart for Ikebukuro in search of Yoka. That said, this new world is a pretty difficult place to navigate, and Shizuru and her friends aren't exactly well versed in the ways of survival. Train to the End of the World is a post-apocalyptic fantasy anime that'll show you unforgettable characters and moments. Its setting will hook you in more ways than one, and it's simply a must-watch for fans looking for amazing new fantasy anime to try out. Number 10, The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic.
A magic circle? Did he wander into the middle of a film shoot or something?
Kazuki Ryusen and Suzume Inukami are summoned to the Linger Kingdom to take up arms against the Demon Lord's army as heroes, but during the summoning process, their classmate, Ken Usato, is accidentally dragged along with them. While Kazuki and Inukami have an aptitude for offensive light and lightning magic, Usato has an affinity for healing magic. Unfortunately, while healing magic is regarded by the fantasy world's inhabitants as a rare type, it's also known as the most useless one in combat. Since there is no way of sitting Usato back, Rose, the captain of the kingdom's rescue team, enlists Usato to train under her so he isn't just dead weight. And so begins a lifetime of rigorous training for Usato to make him battle ready by the time the Demon Lord invades with his army. Now, Usato must face insurmountable obstacles from surviving in forests full of unknown monsters to protecting the citizens from demons, because otherwise, the fiery tempered Rose might just off him. Number 9, The Witch and the Beast. A long time ago, Guido was cursed by a witch who caused her true form to be locked up, and ever since then, she has been living life looking like a schoolgirl and being accompanied by Aeshoff, a mage from the Order of Magical Resonance. But Guido's dead set on finding that witch and exacting her revenge, and that's why she joined the Order of Magical Resonance in the first place.
Let's try this!
The Order is a group that investigates magical events taking place in the world, and they make sure witches or anybody else doesn't break the balance. While Guido's motives are different from theirs, she agrees to work with Aeshoff in the Order if it means she'll eventually find the witch responsible for her curse. So together both Aeshoff and Guido roam the world solving witch-related crimes and inch one step closer at a time to the final confrontation with the witch who cursed Guido. Each episode of The Witch and the Beast explore a new area of its fantasy world, and over its course, the anime exposes you to many new characters, tons of action, and the mystery surrounding Guido's curse. Number 8, Kaiju No. 8.
We'll go out the window!
The next fantasy anime on our list with 0 bad episodes is Kaiju No. 8. Two childhood friends, Kafka Hibino and Mina Ashiro, exist in an iteration of Japan where monsters called kaiju terrorize the lands. After their hometown is destroyed, both of them vow to become strong kaiju hunters in the future, and that would have happened if not for a small hiccup. While Mina manages to become the captain of the defense force, Kafka is living life paycheck to paycheck working as a 32-year-old kaiju sweeper. After failing his defense force exams repeatedly, Kafka has all but given up on his dream, but then one day, he gets hospitalized because of a kaiju sweeping job gone wrong. It's then that a parasite-type kaiju enters his body, and he acquires superhuman powers and the ability to transform into a kaiju.
In one shot!
Kafka is soon discovered by the defense force, and after quite a few episodes of distrust, the force dubs Kafka as Kaiju No. 8 and sends him on a dangerous mission with Mina and other kaiju hunters to maintain peace in the country. With this, Kafka's life heads down a road filled with mayhem, tough choices, and battles against powerful kaijus. Kaiju No. 8 is like Chainsaw Man, but a little less gritty and instead more vibrant like Fire Force. It's the perfect blend of fantasy meets comedy meets action, and from all the new anime that have come our way in 2024, it's easily one of the best ones yet. Number 7, Shangri-La Frontier. Rockuro Hizutome is a hardcore gamer that loves mastering games that are full of bugs and almost unplayable, so much so that he calls himself the Trash Game Hunter. But everyone has their limits, and soon Rockuro gets burnt out from playing all those broken games. For a change, he decides to get the new best-selling VR game Shangri-La Frontier, which has 30 million players and no bugs at all. Before starting the game, Rockuro invests skill points in the luck skill tree and sells off everything he has in his inventory except for a blue bird mask, a pair of shorts, and some weapons. Then, he dives into the fantasy world of Shangri-La Frontier as a character, Sun Rocco, with his friends. To his surprise, Shangri-La Frontier is the best game he has ever played, and he instantly gets addicted to it. He goes headfirst into every enemy he can find, and thanks to his high luck and all that experience he gained from playing trash games, Rockuro levels up rapidly within the game's world. He starts taking on quests that other players think are too difficult, and soon, Rockuro's legend starts spreading throughout Shangri-La Frontier as its strongest player. Number 6, Spice and Wolf, Merchant meets the Wise Wolf.
The North. I'd like to go home.
Spice and Wolf is a fantasy romance anime that follows a merchant named Lawrence and the wolf deity Holo, who travel the countryside together selling items and learning about the culture of different folks, all while they are slowly getting to know each other better. From this synopsis, you'll be able to instinctively tell Spice and Wolf is a romance adventure tale, but unlike most romance anime, this isn't all fun and games, and there's a decent plot unfolding with every passing episode.
Are you frightened of me now?
As Holo and Lawrence travel to different regions, they discover new trade opportunities and meet new people, and you'll get to see their personalities develop extensively. The overarching storyline is one of the best ever too, and by its end, Spice and Wolf, Merchant meets the Wise Wolf, will surely touch your soul. Number 5, Remonster. In his previous life, Tomokui Kanata was killed by a stalker, but death would only mark the beginning of his new life as a goblin in a fantasy world. Tomokui is reincarnated as Goburo, a weak and bald-headed goblin, but what's different about him, besides the fact that he's the MC, is that he has a special power that allows him to learn new skills when he eats monsters. Oh, and like other goblins, he can evolve into a higher level goblin when he accumulates enough XP. Whenever he and the other goblins evolve, their bodies completely change and they become far stronger too.
Well, it's worth a shot. Phase 1, Demise Magic. Gidirk.
Remonster follows Goburo as he goes from being a lame old goblin to a goblin overlord. However, that's only the tip of the iceberg. There are hundreds of fantasy creatures, characters, and breathtaking locations in the anime. Some fights will leave you awestruck, and they are accompanied by good animation to match them. The story also keeps itself fresh, thanks to the evolution element that changes the look of the entire cast as the story continues. Number 4, Unnamed Memory. Oscar is the crown prince of the Farsis kingdom, but someone seems to have put a cruel curse on him. Whenever Oscar is about to have a child, his wife dies, and this cycle continues regardless of how many times he remarries. Nothing he's tried so far has managed to dispel the curse, and not having an heir to his empire, let alone a child, is a devastating fact for him. But after Oscar's ready to admit defeat, he gives a final shot at curing his condition. He climbs the Azure Tower in search of the fabled witch of the Azure Moon, someone who's supposedly strong enough to lift his curse. After a series of rigorous challenges, Oscar finally meets Tanasha, and she proposes that Oscar marry someone with strong magical power to repel the curse. But why look around when you have a strong and beautiful witch right in front of you?
さすが沈黙の魔女。非常にお気の毒ですが。
つまり、結局解けないと。
Those were exactly the thoughts going around in Oscar's head, and he proposed to Tanasha that very instant. Tanasha denies, of course, although somehow the conversation ends with the two agreeing that Tanasha will live with Oscar in the Kingdom of Farsus for 1 year. It's hard to imagine how Oscar plans on making Tanasha fall for him, but one thing's for sure, the Farsus Kingdom is filled with rebels, dragons, and magical beasts of all sorts that love to cause trouble, so we're definitely going to be seeing a lot of adventure quests besides all the rom-com. Number 3. Delicious in Dungeon. Wandering in endless labyrinths slaying monsters isn't as cool as it sounds, and there's no one better to explain the feeling than Leos and his party. During one of their dungeon dives, a giant red dragon ambushes them and gobbles up Laios' sister Fallen. The rest of the party is teleported to the dungeon's beginning, but Laios is set on saving his sister before that dragon digests her. There's just one small problem. The party has absolutely zero funds, resources, and food to survive the journey. That is unless they are prepared to commit the taboo act of eating monster meat. With no alternative in sight and Fallen's rescue being the top priority, Leos, Chilchuck, Marcel, and Senshi head deeper into the labyrinth and embark on a culinary adventure of a lifetime that involves the cooking of the most delectable monster meals.
It's ready.
That includes, but is not limited to, savory magical crabs, chickens that come with a snake tail, parasitic worms, to all sorts of weird creatures you can't imagine. Delicious in Dungeon is a fantasy anime that cuts no corners when it comes to delivering stunning animation, a thrilling story, and unforgettable delights. And if it wasn't clear already, for otakus that love nothing more than hunting their own monsters and then cooking them into delectable meals, Delicious in Dungeon should be on top of their bucket list. Number 2. The Unwanted Undead Adventurer.
勘弁してくれよ。俺は。
Another new fantasy anime with 0 terrible episodes is The Unwanted Undead Adventurer. Rent Faena is an adventurer who's making ends meet. Most of the time, Rent is hunting low-level beasts like goblins and slimes in dungeons to make ends meet. But one day, everything changes when he's eaten by a dragon. You might have noticed fantasy anime this year seem to have a very weird pattern of characters getting eaten by dragons or monsters first before the story begins. Anyhow, Rent awakens to find himself in the form of a skeleton. He's an undead now, and while shocked at first, Rent quickly starts to make the most of his situation. He kills other skeletons lurking by and evolves into a ghoul, and learns that the more high-level beings he kills, the more he seems to be getting stronger. Eventually, Rent's path crosses with Rina, another adventurer who helps him reach his friends and consequently find a way to get out of his weird undead predicament.
レント、お前。
Once that's all said and done, Rent takes on a new persona and re-enlists as an adventurer. With the help of his allies, both new and old, he accepts jobs that used to seem too difficult when he was a human, the sole purpose of his actions being so that he can find a way to evolve once again into a stronger undead, and also so he doesn't look like someone with both feet in the grave already. Number 1. Frieren, Beyond Journey's End.
Ara, the one standing before you, is a great mage who's lived for over 1,000.
Arguably the best fantasy anime of all time is a rather new addition to the genre, Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. It's a story about a 1,000-year-old and practically immortal elven mage named Frieren. Frieren has lived through many lifetimes, fought uncountable wars, and met and buried innumerable of her comrades. She's seen the entire history of the world unfold right in front of her eyes, and after thousands of years of roaming the planet, Frieren reflects upon her past. The actual plot kicks in when Frieren returns after half a century to meet the group with whom she defeated the Demon Lord. However, while Frieren hasn't aged a day, they, on the other hand, have grown old. This is when Frieren's life also intertwines with that of a gifted orphan called Fern, and this marks a pivotal moment for Frieren's future. Another journey for Frieren is about to begin, one filled with emotionally driven moments, hearty new faces, and the occasional brawling.
好きだらけです。
The story is told in the present day, as well as in a series of flashbacks that show you what Frieren has been doing for the past 1,000 years. So, watching Frieren Beyond Journey's End is like jumping into a world where thousands of awesome stories have already happened, yet twice as many still await. Every single episode of Frieren Beyond Journey's End is a blast, and if you had to pick a single new fantasy anime to watch, this would be it.